Alright, so it's time to get these details baked out of ZBrush, and we're going to apply it as a normal map to the low poly mesh in Maya. And so in ZBrush we can go to the C plugins, dock that over here. We have a multi-map exporter. You can choose a normal map, and we do want to flip it vertically on export, as in ZBrush the UVs are actually upside down, kind of. So this needs to be on, and we can select a 2K map or a 4K map. Do 4K, export options, do a normal map. Okay, so tangent space normal map is what we want. We want to smooth the low res normals, that's fine. Smooth UVs, this is something that you would check on if, like, it depends on a bit on how you worked. But let's see if I copy this and I smooth it once. In this case, you see the UVs are actually also smooth. If I were to bake a normal map to be applied to this mesh, I would need to check this box. But if I want to apply it to this mesh, for which the UVs are straight, it needs to be unchecked. So let's try to apply it to this mesh. And also, if I just press 3, right, to subdivide, you can also see that the UVs are smooth. By the way, just while I'm on the topic, you do have the option to see here, for instance, under smooth mesh, you can go in here and see, set that to none, for instance. It will not smooth the UVs. So you just need to be mindful of this. So here I'm subdividing, but I'm not smoothing the UVs. So at least, yes, that's for the legacy. This is the open subdiv, and there we go. That's sort of the default setting. All right, so it's just being mindful of that. That's why that option is there. So, like I said, for now I'm gonna uncheck that. So smooth normals is fine. We do want to smooth the low res normals, tangent space. And we also have the option to flip either the RGB channels. This is due to the unfortunate event that all different applications kind of read normal maps a little bit differently. It's not to say that they're all different, but there's not like one unified standard, unfortunately. So sometimes you do have to flip the green channel, most often. And that is something, of course, that we could also just do in manually. But here we do have the option to do that on export. So let's just try to create all maps and we'll see what happens. All right, leave that in data for now. The naming of the file is something that's a bit tricky to get right out of multi-map exporter. I've never figured out quite how to do that. Even though you go in here and try to set it up correctly, it always seems I have to go and name it after the fact anyways. So that's what I'm going to do. So rename. So there we have our normal map. You can take a look at it right away in Photoshop. Okay, so it looks predictable for the most part, except here. Seems we're getting an artifact, so we'll have to look into what's causing that. But overall, this is kind of the color scheme that you would expect. That's what a tangent space normal map should look like. Yeah, so you know, if you Google normal map, you'll find a lot of examples of this. So if you have radically different colors from this, which can sometimes happen if you have an unsuccessful bake, you do have to bake again. So this is more or less what it should look like. And let's just try to attach it here to create a blend and just do a bump mapping file. So on the bump node, we need to change this from bump to tangent space normals. I'll follow here to the file node, find the file, and we could copy it over, I guess, to source images. So that is the file in which textures should be placed. And here on the file node, we do want to change sRGB to raw. And that's it. So, yeah, like I said, apart from this error, it does seem that the normal map is working. Let's just add a ground plane. And we can enable, yeah, here I already have screen space, ambient occlusion, and shadows enabled. So if I add a Arnold area light, will that update in the viewport? I think so. Let's see, press 7. So we can create some high contrast scenario here. So if I move the light around, you'll see that the normal map really responds very nicely to that. So it is working. If I toggle 5 and 6 and 7, you can really see the difference. So this is so these are even the additional edges, right, that we introduced. Could even get rid of those. And we should see that the UVs are fine because they're not a part of the border edges of the UV shells. So here, 6, 7. Yeah, quite successful apart from this. So let's address that. I'm going to undo just to get back those additional edges because yeah, it's actually a bit fortunate that it happened because it gives me a chance to address something I wanted to address anyways, and that is we're going to bring so we're going to do some changes, fix the topology, then we're going to have to remember to also UV map just that region again. And also I could potentially also, when I look at this now, see that this bottom part is really occupying a lot of space here in the UVs, and it doesn't really need to. I'm going to change the UVs a bit then, and retopo just here, and I'm going to try to bake again. So what we're going to do, eventually, we'll bring the new retopologized version into here as a subtool, and then we're going to be able to actually project the details back down onto the new topology and the new UVs, the new mesh. Alright, so let's just go ahead and just copy that guy, and we'll make a new version here just quickly. So yes, break the Lambert, and I like just working, just press harden edge and unlock normals when I'm just working with the mesh. So alright, so let's just do a quick solution here. Would be to, let me select that vertex, control right click, two faces, to minimize this area which the trice are in, and then because now this would be quads, like all of this are actually quads, right? Then I could maybe kind of retain that area with an additional edge loop. Let's try that. And just provide some edge loops here. Don't know if that's gonna fix it, but at least we can just try. So that's all I'm gonna do. And yeah, select two faces again, and then shift, and use the greater than symbol right next to the shift button to grow that selection. See, there we go. And for this, I can just quickly do UV automatic mapping and then UV shell. There we have that. And I know that it doesn't need to be that large, but we also know that this doesn't need to be that large. So I can just, I know I'm no longer have a very uniform texel density, but it just means that, okay, I have a bit lower resolution at the bottom, but in my case, that's okay. And I now have more resolution up here. We'll export this new mesh as container 02. And here I'm in this tool. I can go C plugin subtool master and hit multi-append. I'm going to be able to just select that OBJ, and it will automatically just place it as a subtool underneath here. So you do need to make sure that the newly created, like the new topology, the new mesh right here is underneath, and the original one with all the details is on top in its highest subdivision level, which this seems to be. It's at 5.7 million. So then we do need to subdivide this new version so that we have enough polys on which to project the details. So, alright, so Control D, Control D, Control D a few times so that we have a sufficient amount of polygons. So now we have 6.7 million, and it's about 1 million more than our original, just because we changed the topology. So here we see how crucially important it is to have an even polygonal distribution, because now, even with just that little change, now we have a very dense polygonal distribution down here, and we have an uneven kind of subdivision result. So 1 million additional polys, which are now very inefficiently distributed here in ZBrush. So that's what we were talking about earlier, the importance of keeping uniform polygonal density. But for in this case, I'm just kind of just want to get a successful bake, and then we can go in after the fact on this low poly mesh and actually delete superfluous edges. Okay, so let's do the projection. That's our original. Here we have the new mesh with more than enough polys to receive the projection. We go down here to project. We're gonna go project all. Usually, depending on the how large your details are, this distance might be okay. Sometimes you might need to up it just a little bit, and I think in my case, when I'm thinking about especially that panel I did, I'm going to increase that search distance a bit, so maybe 0.08 or 9 to be safe. Alright, so it's going to take a little while longer, but so I'm going to start the projection. Should take about maybe 5 or 6 minutes, I'm guessing, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so that took about 4 or 5 minutes here on my computer. Let's see. We hide the original. This is our new projection, and it's looking pretty good. Yeah. Sometimes there are some artifacts we would have to resolve. There could be some spikes sometimes and things. But I did increase the search distance to 0.09. And it seems like it kind of did the job. So this is the original new projection. Okay, very nice. Then, yeah, so the moment of truth, we just have to export a new normal map. So, same settings, create all maps, and again, probably going to have to rename anyways. But yeah, so these processes in ZBrush, they are pretty quick, very, very efficient, because bear in mind it is kind of computing, you know, many, many millions of polys. Alright, 20 seconds. And let's see if we get a more successful normal map this time. Data. There we go. Alright, let's have a look at it in Photoshop again. Oh yeah, so now it's capturing at least that whole detail, whereas before it was just a mess due to all those tries probably. So yeah, so this is looking a lot more recognizable, right? We do have some issues here though still with these kind of lines, so that even if we had, if you remember, smooth normals turned on, we're still kind of seeing this effect of the low poly kind of bleeding through there, which is not a problem elsewhere, it seems. So I think it's just still not really too thrilled about my topology kind of. I think in my case, I'm just going to have to live with that. And it gives me also the chance to show you that you can do some changes here in Photoshop. Of course, a bit limited, but let me try to sample this neutral color. So I hit I, or you can also select here the eyedropper tool. I select that, make a new layer, paint bucket, just fill that layer, and I place that underneath this guy. And I can literally, I do see I have some artifact here. I guess that's just the sides here or something. It's not really doing a good job with that at all. And it seems like, looking at it now, kind of up close, this whole area is kind of useless, and I don't want to spend more time doing more bakes here for this demo at least. So I'm just going to actually do, just erase this whole top area. So just make this top flat. So I have this top layer. I'm just literally using the eraser, and I'm just erasing back down to the neutral color underneath. And to get rid of these kind of lines, I mean, there are different tools here we could try. We have the spot healing brush. I don't know. I don't think that will do the job here. I don't really use these too much, actually. Or we could do a clone stamp. So we sample this color, and then kind of go like that. In my case, I think I'm actually just gonna do this very manually. So I do a low hardness on the brush. Maybe have a little larger brush, and I'm just gonna hold Alt every now and then, sample a bit of this color. Let's see. Is it actually? Yeah, it is responding. It's just very low opacity. Okay. Increase the opacity a bit. Can you use the number keys for that? So I'm sampling that color. Whoops. Actually, I do want to lower the opacity, but so not the most optimal solution, but creating that, holding spacebar, by the way, to do that. Hand tool. Alright. See, gradually maybe these lines are at least much less apparent. Just kind of sampling the neighboring color. Yeah. So I could spend more time on that, but I'm not going to. And I think that's going to have to cut it for me. At least we got to see how we can do a little bit of manual labor here. Control E, I'm just going to merge them back together. And let me save this. And now let's just save that. That would be container roll map. I'm just gonna place that one. And back in Maya, let's apply the blend again. So yeah, so there's, it's already updated. Do need to smooth. Just press soften edge. Alright, that's as good as it's going to get for me. right now. And so it is a pretty successful bake. Overall, a little bit of issues here, but at least we got to see how we can attempt to do a manual reprojection and fix some topology and UVs. There is an alternative to what I just showed you here. This would be the manual way to do it, and I think it's very helpful to actually know how to do that. ZBrush would do that automatically, or it would kind of attempt to do it. Most cases it will do it successfully. So you got to the bottom subdivision level of this, and I could hit import while still being in edit mode. And I would just import the newly created object. And ZBrush would recognize that, okay, it's just very similar to this one, but as soon as you press D, you would see up here that it would say, like, recomputing higher subdivision levels. So you would know that behind the scenes, ZBrush is actually doing this reprojection and fitting these details onto your new topology. So, but sometimes you do have to go in and be able to set this up manually like we did. All right. So, add a light again. Let's do a directional light this time. Press number 7. And there we go. There's one more here. Poor guy that fell over. Let's see. There we go. And here we could start having fun with this if we wanted to. Do some modular elements. This could be columns or something instead of containers. But alright, so that covers it as far as baking in ZBrush using the multi-map exporter.